Welcome to tonight's live stream. I am so excited that you are here. My name is Bryttani Graddick. I am CEO and founder of Talented Teams Consulting, where I work with HR Department of One professionals to help you to thrive in your HR roles. So tonight we're talking about how to network when you're working in HR, but you're also an introvert. I think that sometimes people get it twisted. They think that just because you are an HR professional, that you're also an introvert. And that's not necessarily the case. I myself I'm not an introvert. I know how to, I'm not an extrovert. I know how to be social. I know how to work the room. I know how to meet new people. I know how to go into spaces where I might be the only person in the room who doesn't know anyone else. And I know how to fit in, but that doesn't mean that's what I love to do. So for you out there, if you are an HR professional, if you are an introvert, if you know that your job depends on you being able to go into these spaces and navigate them effectively, then you are in the right place. So if you are joining live, say hey to me in the comments. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're catching the replay, put hashtag replay in the chat so that I know that you were here as well. But tonight we're talking about how to network as an HR professional who's also an introvert. So when I think about being an introvert, I immediately go back to when I first started my career in HR. So for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that I started in HR as an unpaid intern. And when I was an unpaid intern, I worked under the leadership of a senior HR manager. And so when I did that, we would go to meetings and I would be her plus one. I'd be her tag along. I'd be her sidekick. And so I kind of squandered that opportunity in those spaces because she was the one who knew everyone. She was the one who everyone knew. She was the one who would go into the room and everyone would be, hey, so good to see you. And no one knew me because, again, I was so brand new, fresh out of college. And looking back, I realized that I kind of squandered that opportunity because I should have used that to kind of leverage my relationships as well. And so if you are in that space similarly, I don't want you to squander the opportunity. Excuse me. Give me one moment. I'm sorry. My apologies. I've been talking all day, so it's continuing to deal with that struggle, but I'm here. I'm showing up. So again, when I think about being an introvert and what it takes to network in these spaces, at a certain point, you know that it's necessary in order for your careers to grow. So again, when I was fresh, brand new, spanking new into my job, I was still early in my career. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't understand the importance of getting to know more people. But then once I became an HR department of one, a solo HR practitioner, I knew then that my network was going to really be my determining factor for really understanding how to navigate this space, who to reach out to if I have an issue, who to call for support, all those things. Because even though you're working by yourself, you still need to have a support team around you to be able to lift you up, to understand what you're going through, but to support you in those times. And so when I became an HR department of one, that's really when it started to kick in like, hey, Bryttani, you've got to understand how to go into these spaces. Yes, you're an introvert, but you've got to make the most of this opportunity. Because remember, I said in the prior video, if it wasn't me, it was going to be somebody else. And I didn't want to just let this opportunity slip. And so I started attending more events and figuring out ways to fit into things. But if I'm being completely honest, going to these meetings make me feel small. Going to these meetings, watching everybody else talk and laugh and cut up and talk about prior experiences, it made me feel left out. It made me feel a little bit less than, even though I'm not saying that it was warranted, but I kind of felt like I was on the outside of the club, so to speak. So I had to figure out different ways to make myself parts of the conversation. I'm going to talk about that tonight because I think it's really, really important for you not to go into these spaces blind. You really need to understand how to have opportunities to network and meet new people and not feel drained in the process. So when we're talking about introverts and extroverts, don't make the mistake of thinking that one is better than the other. So for example, I'm an introvert, but that does not mean that I'm not social. So I'm very social. If you see me at work, if you see me on a committee, if you see me in any space, mostly you'll see me talking to people, facilitating presentations, doing things like this, but I'm an introvert. So think about it this way. An introvert can do all these things: meet new people, talk to people, be in spaces where they're the only one that they know. And when they go home, they've got to make sure they recharge their batteries. So, for example, I recharge my batteries by being by myself, doing things that I like to do, just having alone time, quiet time, sitting by myself. An extrovert, on the other hand, they will probably be wondering, okay, so where's the next party? Where's the after party? Where's the after party to the after party? And so, again, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. Introverts and extroverts are both necessary. You can't have everyone being the same. But I say all this to say, make sure that when you're navigating these spaces, when you're building your career, any career, especially when you're dealing with people, you need to know which category you fall into. And the reason why it's important to know which category you fall into is because you need to know when you're going to hit your limits, what that's going to look like, and what that's going to feel like. So for me, I've always been an introverted personality. As a small child, as a middle schooler, as a high schooler, I've always been an introvert. Not that I haven't been social, but I've always been an introvert. And one of the things that really kind of clicked with me as I was trying to build my career is I had to realize that everywhere I went, I would find my lane. So stick with me here. This is what I'm saying. If I was in school, maybe I had a club I was a part of, or I was in the band and I was the drum major, or at church, I played piano and I was singing and I was in the choir. And then I had to realize, how can I use that same find my lane, find my space in my network, in my professional life? So what I did was I figured out ways to get onto boards of committees. And so we'll talk about this as well. It's really important to find spaces where you're going to feel comfortable. So if you know that you're an introvert, the advice I'm giving you is to find a board to be a part of. And it seems counterintuitive, but think about it this way. You go into a space where you know no one. You're the only person that you know. You're striking up conversations with random strangers. That's challenging. Now, flash forward 7 months, flash forward a year. Maybe now you're on the board of that committee. You're on the board of that association. You're on the board of that club. Now, anytime you go into that meeting, you have a built-in group of people that know you, that trust you, that like you, because you've been building relationships with these people. So that's a cheat code for me. Figure out ways to get on the boards of committees and clubs and associations to build in a network of people that you know and that you interact with. So for me, I had to learn to find my lane as an HR Department of One professional, because I knew that if I was comfortable, that would be difficult for me to grow. And so if you get nothing else from this conversation, remember, sometimes it's difficult to grow where you're comfortable. You've got to come out of your comfort zone. Anything worth having is worth working for. And so your career is no different. So if you're trying to figure out spaces where you can grow your career, but not know new people, grow your career, but not do anything challenging, you're going to have a really, really tough time. So again, dig into these challenges. We're going to talk about my top tips for what it takes to network and navigate these spaces as an HR Department of One who is an introvert. So my first tip would be to accept and embrace that you are an introvert. That is completely okay. I put a social media post, I think I put it on LinkedIn and Instagram and maybe even Facebook, that talked about the fact that just because you're an HR professional does not mean that you're a people person. Yes, you're a people person because you're the person who deals with everyone in the employee life cycle, from their new hire status all the way through the COBRA paperwork and beyond. So you deal with people at every stage of their working relationship, but that doesn't mean you're a people person. That means that you understand how to work with people and you can do that well, but that doesn't mean you want to be around people all the time. So accept and embrace the fact that you're an introvert, and embracing that comes with accepting and understanding what you need. So for example, I talked before about knowing what it feels like if you know that your batteries are drained. Know what that feels like if your people meter is a little too high. Understand what you need to do to get back to feeling like your normal self. So again, you can't avoid the fact that you're an introvert, and you don't want to fake it until you make it. That's not one of those spaces either. But being an introvert does not mean that you can't be social. You can still be social. It's just going to have a different impact on you. So keep that in mind. My next tip would be to go to an event with a friend or a colleague. So this is kind of a spin on what I talked about before. Maybe you're not ready to be on the board. Maybe you aren't qualified to be on the board of whatever association or club or organization that you're a part of. But maybe you can find a colleague that you know that can go with you. Or maybe you meet someone brand new at this event for the very first time, and you coordinate schedules and see, okay, are you going to the next one? Or I can't go to that one, I'll go to the one after that. See if you can anticipate people going with you into these spaces. It's going to help you with your anxiety level, because you'll not be the only person there that you know, and you'll be able to spark up conversations, pick up where you left off, ask about the family, ask about the kids. And that brings me into my very next point. So when you're networking with people, one of my top cheat codes is to get people to talk about themselves. People love talking about themselves. And so that's one of the things that has helped me to get to know more people, for people to get to know me, is that when I go into these spaces, if you're here joining live, tell me, hey, in the comments, I want to know that you're here. And also tell me, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? I'm curious to know who I'm talking to. But one of my biggest tips is to get people to talk about themselves. And you would think, okay, so how do you start that conversation? So say you're walking up to somebody who you don't know. My first tip would be, say, smile. Make eye contact with people and smile first, because people love to talk to a friendly face. So if you're making eye contact with people, you're smiling, you're getting to know people, maybe compliment someone. If they're wearing a unique shirt or a unique pair of pants or a unique scarf, compliment them on that. They made a conscious effort to wear whatever that was. So the fact that you'll notice it and the fact that you'll talk about it is going to be a booster for them. So get to know people, talk to them, learn their name, say their name. I heard someone quoted the other day that said the sweetest sound a person can hear is their name being said. And it's so true. If you meet a person, say their name, and try to say their name at least 3 times so you can remember their name. Now, I will say I am the worst at remembering names, but I'll remember a face before a name. But do your best to try to do that, because it's going to help you to build those connections. But when you're getting people to talk about themselves, ask great questions. And this is kind of a side conversation, but as an HR problem informed professional, as an HR professional in general, you've got to be a great question asker. You've got to be a great investigator. You've got to have a level of curiosity around you so that you want to get to know people, so people can get to know you. So when we have issues on our job, my 9 to 5, they often say, well, I'm going to wait till our lead investigator gets back. If there's an issue going on with an employee, or if there's something want to get to the bottom, if there's something want to get to the bottom of, they want to wait until I get back, because I ask great questions. But that just comes from great practice. So ask questions, get to know people, get people to talk about themselves. It's going to do you so well, because they're going to walk away from that conversation feeling connected to you, even if you don't share much about yourself. You don't have to share everything about yourself if you don't want to. But the more you know about other people, the more you can get them to share with you, the closer that relationship will be, and the stronger the foundation that will be. So I would say get great at asking questions, get comfortable at asking people to talk about themselves and ask them about family vacations and all those things. So these are some foundational things you want to keep in mind when you're networking in HR. And as a new HR professional, or even as a tenured HR professional, you really want to make sure you keep these things in mind. My biggest tip when it comes to networking as an introverted HR professional is to know your limits. I said before, you have to know what it feels like if you are drained. Learn how to end conversations. Learn how to know when to step away from conversations. And understand you don't have to go to every single event. But the ones that you do commit to going to, make sure that you make them count. If you go to an event, don't hide in the corner. If you go to an event, don't just sit at the table. If you go to an event, don't just wait for people to come and talk to you. If you're going, make sure you're making the most of that time, because you could be sitting at home. You could be doing Sudoku. You could be doing whatever it is that you decide to do. But again, if you're going to go to an event, make sure you're making the most of that opportunity so that you can walk away and feel good about your time spent there. So I say all that to say, if you have not already downloaded my free guide, How to Thrive as an HR Department of One, if you can click any of the links below, probably, or anywhere on this page, you'll find it there. But the goal of that guide is really to give you a blueprint on what you can do to navigate your HR career. And actually, coming up next Wednesday, I'm hosting a free masterclass on how to thrive in human resources. We're going to talk about my signature framework on what I feel are the 4 keys to making sure that you succeed in your HR career, no matter what stage of your career you're in, no matter what your specialty is, no matter what you're trying to accomplish. If you're looking for growth, this framework is going to help you. If you've not already registered for the masterclass, I'm going to drop the link in the comments now. And so I'll also put it on my screen so that you can look at it here. But it's talentedteamsconsulting.com/masterclass. And so this masterclass is going to be a 1-hour event or however long conversation goes. I'm not gonna hold you longer than you need to be. But if there are questions, if there's conversation, I'm going to keep you there for as long as anyone needs to be. But I'm going to talk about my signature framework, the 4 pieces that I feel are necessary beyond what the guide includes. So the guide talks about the 5 things that your career demands, but this masterclass is going to talk about my 4 components of a successful HR career, the 4 things you want to consistently focus on, the 4 things you want to consistently use to grow your career with intention. So if you've not already registered for that masterclass, click that link that I put down in the chat or the one that's scrolling on your screen and let me know if you have any questions about that. If you have any questions before we end, please feel free to drop them down below. I'm curious to know if you are an introvert or an extrovert as an HR professional. So if you're watching the replay or you're joining live, leave that down in the comments below and tell me this. How do you feel about networking in HR? Is it something that you're comfortable with? Is it something that you struggle with? Drop those comments below. And even after this live stream ends, let's continue the conversation down in the chat. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. Let's keep the conversation down going in the chat. So if you've got any questions for me, if I could serve you at a higher level, if there's any way that I could be of an assistance to you, feel free to not hesitate to reach out to me. If you enjoyed this conversation, like the video, share it with your network, and subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this. We do release videos at least every week, multiple times a week. And so I will hope to work with you soon. I hope I can serve you at a higher level. Please feel free to let me know. I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye. Thank you, Angela. Hope to see you on the next one.